Okay, everybody, good afternoon. It's afternoon over here in Nigeria. So good afternoon, everybody. So this is the book. The book is by Eric Math, right? Like I promised us the other day, we're going to be learning from a book, right? So of course, we've covered almost the entire chapter 1 of the book. So today we're beginning with chapter 2. When you scroll down, the book is very, very rich and great at the same time. So, okay, this is table of contents. Let's scroll. Chapter 2, acknowledgements. Okay, so the entire chapter 1 is just helping you to set up your entire Python environment, which was all we were able to do during the week, right? So this book was written when Python, I think the latest version of Python part-time was 3.7.2. That was when this code was, this book was published. So to me, please do. I use both Windows and Linux, so I can help you, right? I have kind of an understanding of the two, at least for what we're going to cover throughout this course. So please do well to reach out to me personally in case if you have any problems. Now, what I'm using here is Linux, but it also applies to Windows, right? So we're going to do that. And we also dropped a guide on how to set up your environment for Python. Right? I don't know if all of us got it, but I think all of us did. So I set up the environment, and I expect that all of us should have our environment already. But nonetheless, we're going to walk us through the setting up of the environment. So that today, I am not going to do that today because today I have some things to introduce you to, and I don't want the class to be overly lengthy. So I'm going to focus on introducing you to the material we're going to use, and also to the, of course, lesson of today. But for next week, we're likely, or maybe midweek, we would have a session where we'll do the installations. For people who have installation problem, we might organize a short 30-minute meeting so that I will walk you through some of those things. I knew I dropped the slide, but in case if you have tried but you fell short, you can just talk to Rejoice, and then Rejoice will set up a meeting for us in that regard, right? So let me scroll down. Let me keep scrolling. Okay, chapter 2, I guess. Great. So we have chapter 2 here. So this is the book we are going to be using, and then here is chapter 2. Now, what is your own part of the bargain now? Your part of the bargain is that you go back home and then you look at this book from the beginning, just have time to scroll through it, read through the things you have in the chapter 1. Right? That helps you you can see some things there and then also pick out. Right. So what you're going to be doing is immediately after our class is just a recording. You just go back and watch. But this is your main material. You read the material here. Your assignments are here. Right. So for this is week 1, but we are starting with chapter 2. Week 2, we go to chapter 3. That's how it is going to be. Right. So your assignments are going to be here. In fact, if you get confused, everything you need for the assignment is still here, still in this book. Right. So your own end of the bargain is after we're done with this class, you go and then you also go back to read the book. Of course, I will not be reading everything line by line. I might just be picking out some very, very important points and then saying them, and then we just pass. Right. Your duty is to go back home, sit down, and then read through the book. And the book is very, very easy and it's very, very friendly. It's more like imagine somebody teaching you coding and then the person is teaching you coding using stories, right? Story in a story format. So that's how the book is. Very, very friendly and easy to learn and understand, right? So, of course, enough of the storytelling. Let's get right into it. Now, of course, before we start discussing what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be using Google Colab, and right? So some things that you don't understand, feel free to ask questions. We'll explain for you. But then be rest assured that some things you would understand them more as you continue to do. So this entire course is more like a doing course, not like just sitting down and then listening to a course, right? Now, what we're going to first be looking at is variables and data types. Now, variables. What is a variable? First of all, I know all of us did math, right? All of us did math. Most of you here will claim that you like data analysis, but you don't like math. I don't know which kind of data analysis you like anyway. So if you don't like math, really, I don't know. I don't know how you're going to do it. It's not entire math. It's not entirely math. But then, of course, as you continue to grow, you see the need for some of your basic math, something like addition, multiplication, subtraction, from there you begin to grow to some things, some basic things, like power, like statistics, basic statistics, and the rest. In fact, that's data analysis, if you would ask me. I'll ask you, if you ask me the definition of data analysis, I will tell you it's computerized statistics and mathematics. But anyway, let me not scare us off, right? Because before I see the number of attendance reducing. I know you don't like math. Some of you don't like math. I know. You don't have to tell me. But then, if you're watching this video and if you're listening to me, just find a way of settling your difficulties, your problems with math. Of course, whatever it is that we're going to work here, I'm going to try to explain it to you. I'm not going to assume you know. I'm going to try to explain to you what's happening. And then we go. So make peace with math. Math is life. Let's go back and then look at what we did the other day. The other time, the last class, all of us printed something like this, right? We did print hello world, right? We're able to, even though it was not hello world, we just printed welcome to Python for data core 2, right? So all of us printed something like this. Now you can see why I'm saying this is not going to be very, very difficult for me, because you've done some things already. So print is actually a command that tells Python, hey, display this information for me on the screen. Python can still carry out computations without displaying any value. But if you want the Python to display the result of a particular operation, or maybe you want to display something, you would have to call the print value or any other function. There are other functions apart from the print function, but for now, let's stick with the print first, right? So the print will print a value for you. You find out that if you just say name is equal to Manasseh and you don't print name, Python will just hold it in its heart. Imagine that Python has a heart that it will just keep the things that its heart, right? And then if you need it printed out, you can just call the print function and then of name, or you can just put, the message directly here. So you find out that don't worry, look at the code. You find out that if you are writing out something or if you're printing, you can either have a variable here, which you've already covered variables last week, by the way, but I will still explain to you what you did. That's why I told you that just calm down first. We're going to explain and we're going to try to understand as we go, over and over the class. So now it's either you type the message in a pair of strings, or you type in a value, more like your name. If you have already entered a name, if you're giving name a value, Manasseh, then you can just print name. Python will print Manasseh instead, right? Now, when you do this, this is what Python will print out. Of course, we're going to see this, the hello world program, right? So, of course, why won't we even run it? Let's run it. So, if you missed the onboarding session, of course, it's Colab we're using, right? So, colab.research.google.com, or you can just search Colab online on your Google search, and then you see that. Then we are going to start a new notebook. Of course, we're going to start a new notebook. And ta-da! Okay, please don't delay. Thank you. So you can go ahead and close this. It's actually your copilot. You will need it later, but not now. Right, let me go here. I need to turn off my copilot support so that it will not be reading my mind. I need us to be exposing this in one step after the other. Great. So you can see I have a lot of notebooks. So I'll just go ahead and rename this notebook. Just go ahead and week 1. Let me name it week 1. So I might give you the access to the notebook. I'm not sure if I will or if I should, but I might. But I mean, you would have the video recording, so you wouldn't need the notebook, right? Of course, I also taught us how to add a text cell the other day, right? You can just come here, hover up where you see text. You can just bring it up, double click, and let's start with basic. Let me just write basic Python. Right. Oh, forgive me. Basic Python. And I can just bold this. And just go ahead and bold this. Of course, if you highlight it, you can just bold here. Another way of doing the bold is just to add double stars at the extreme end. Some of you do this on WhatsApp now. You know all of these guys on WhatsApp. Even before WhatsApp brought out the official shortcuts for bold, italicized, you knew that you could just put star at either ends of a word or a sentence, and then you have an effect, a bold effect, or italicize as depending on whichever literal you use. So now we're just going to stick with the bold, and we're also going to make it a title, right? Just also going to make it the title. Great. So now I have this basic Python. You don't need to write this before your code work. You don't need to write it. But except that adding these text cells as you continue your data journey, they just help make your work structured. You would see that at the end, when you're done writing this, I'll show you table of contents, or you would see even table of contents. You can see it will help you develop table of contents. And sometimes you as a data analyst, you can be analyzing the data that the notebook, the length of the notebook will be so lengthy that you might need to use your table of contents to be able to, go to this section directly. For example, if you're trying to present and then you have only 5 minutes left, and then they just tell you, okay, just go to the conclusion. We want to see your conclusion. Right? You don't have to be scrolling, and you come and even pass. You can just use these sections and then you just go directly to the section. That's one of the importance. Another thing is that whoever you're sending this notebook to, it guides the person so that the person understands, okay, this is this section now. Imagine you have what do you call it now? Imagine you have in your school notebook, your normal notebook in school, that does not have topic and subtopic. I actually found that very, very difficult at times when I started my senior secondary school classes. I was actually confused at some point in time because, I mean, I would just see writing will have like 2-3 pages without having a subtopic clear, Unlike the way we used to do it in primary school, 2-3 lines, you already have a subtopic or a topic. When I went, I was seeing plenty of paragraph without a topic. So it was a bit confusing. And the last thing you would want is to make your work confusing for people. And one thing that adds clarity is adding these text cells. We're going to see other things that add clarity, like comments and the rest. And we're going to see them as we go. So just kindly follow me. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to print the hello world. Let me zoom in. Print hello world. Remind me. Oops. Hello world. Of course, it's just a statement you just type, and then you run this. You can run it by using Control, Enter, or Shift, Enter, or you can use this button that is here and then run it. Those are shortcuts, of course. And you continue to learn them as you journey into the Python world. And you can see data, we have it here, right? So another way you can do this is you can assign something and just say, okay, so let the message be equal to hello world, like we saw last week. And then you can come here and say print message. Then you run this. Now you can see two of them display the same thing. Absolutely, they did the same thing, right? So while this will print hello world, this on the other end will store this hello world in a variable called message. So the variable now is a name of a memory location that is storing hello world. So if you want to call hello world in another place again, you can just print message. It will still print because it has stored this value of hello world somewhere in the computer's memory. Now, the importance of storing in a variable cannot be overemphasized, which we're going to see already. Now, it helps for reusability. Now, you see, anybody that is using this method to print will always have to be using this. Imagine now that this thing is 10 lines long. It means every time that you want to print it, you have to type 10, you have to type those 10 lines each time. Or maybe you have to be doing long copy and paste. Like that makes your work look so lengthy and so unkept. So that's why we now use variables to store those values so that anytime we need them, we can just call them. Because the truth is there are some variables that you will use them over and over and over and over in the process of writing your code, right? So that's why we use variables in the first place. So if this message now holds the value hello world. So anywhere you see message is hello world that the Python is seeing it. And how do you, if you want to believe me, if you come here, over message, just go over, and you see that it is showing you the value below here. This might only happen in Google Colab, right? So when I'm done explaining this one, you take an exercise. Well, let me just be able to finish explaining. Let me go back to our notebook, right? So now you can see what happened here, right? So whenever you tell Python to do this, you're just telling Python, okay, so I want you to display this message for me. That's what Python does, right? Now for variables, you can see the message now came hello world, of course. Now, what they mean by hello world.py is they are assuming that you're running it on the Python file. But don't worry, you're not running it on a Python file. You're running it in a Python notebook because you would see a lot of hello world, py, or maybe a lot of .py files. But don't be confused. We are not using .py files. .py files are just normal Python files. For now, we are not using .py files. When we go to subsequent sections, like I think section 6 or thereabout, or 7, I think we'll start using .py files. So that time you will start seeing some things around, you know. But for now, we're using Python notebooks because we want to see our everything in one long notebook. Right? So we are not opening new Python files. We are running everything in cells instead of in .py files. In case if you don't understand what I said, just don't worry. You will as we continue to go. So run this program to see what happens. Of course, we ran it and then we saw that it gave us this, right? So they're trying to explain to you what a variable is before even defining the variable, right? So we can also add another one. Message is equal to hello crash course world. That's another beautiful thing about Python, which not every programming language allows. Python allows for type. You can change the value of a variable. You can change the value of the variable. Now, so if I like, I can just come here and then type the same word message, right? Same message here. I can just come here and then I'll give it a new value. Hi, everyone. Hope you are learning. Hope you are learning. Now, let's print message and see which one will print. If I run this one, let's see which one. Now you can see it did not print the hello world. Instead, it printed this one. So even if I come here and then I print this one, it will change from hello world to this one because I did an overwrite, right, on the value of the variable. So the value has automatically changed. Except if I come back here and then I run this one again. Now this one now I have what this line has done here is that it has changed the value of message now to hello world. Now if I run this one now, it will show me hello world. But if I come here now and I change the value of message to this, it's going to give me this. So that's what we call overwriting of variables. So it allows that, as we saw here, right? So adding a variable makes a little more work for the Python interpreter at first. That's a little more work at first because, of course, it has to assign this to memory before printing it. But then, if you consider reusability, you find out that it's actually best option, if you ask me. So when it processes the first line, it associates the variable message with this text, right? And when it reaches the second line, that is this line, it prints the associated value. So in this line, it associates message with this value, right? The value can be anything. We're just looking at a particular kind of value now. We'll look at other kinds of values like numbers. These are kinds of values, we call them strings. And we're going to be seeing strings in a short while now. Now, when you print message, you get this. There are rules for naming variables. And some of these rules are our guide. They are the ones that guide us to be able to deliver, you know, to be able to write proper variables. And of course, there are rules here which I'm going to tell you, which even if you break those rules, your Python code will still run. There are rules that if you break, your Python code will not run. Right? So there are two kinds of errors. There are those that if you break them, your Python code will still run, right? Except that you're either going to have some issues going forward, or maybe not just having issues going forward, but you're also going to be breaking some Python. Python is, I don't want to mention this word cults because some of you are very, very religious. But Python is kind of a cult. And of course, anywhere you are me, I feel you are either in a cult with some people like that. It might not be demonic cults, right? But I'm trying to say Pythonic people they have their own association. Let me put it that way. I think it's safe to say they have their own kind of rules and regulation, right? So some of the rules is just how, it's just, imagine there are some rules like dress code, right? So there are some times that some Python rules that you're going to be seeing going forward, if you break them, your code will still run, but except that you will not be looking like a Pythonic guy, right? And the aim is for us to be able to blend and look like Python people. So you might want to be running your code like that, so that anybody that sees your code will know, oh, okay, this person has matured. If you don't write your codes like that, people might actually look at you and then feel this person is still kidding, right? That's why we want you to write your codes in some certain way, or to name some variables in some certain way, right? So you're going to be seeing that as we continue to go. Now, when you're using variables in Python, you need to adhere to a few rules, of course, like I said. Now, one of the rules is that variable names, this is one of the most important rules. Variable names can contain only letters, numbers, and underscores. These are the three things the variable name can contain. Only letters from A to Z, numbers from 0 to 9, and underscores, not dash. Because if you bring in dash in Python, is a sign of subtraction. So if once Python sees something like this, so for example, now you want to say my message, I cannot allow spaces here. If they are the same variable, I cannot allow I cannot allow spaces. It's either I write them and join them together like this, my message, or I can decide to put an underscore here this way, then it is my message. Once you write it in the wrong way, Python will help you to underline it. Tell you more problem deal, right? So my message, oh, but you cannot write something like this, my that message. What Python is looking at is it will try to do my minus message, and you don't want to have that. Once you have my minus message, you're on your own. So Python sees that as a subtraction operation. That is why we cannot use it, right? And if you can also use plus, sees it as an addition, right? Or any other symbol, you cannot use ampersand, because ampersand is also another operator. As we continue to go forward, we'll see all of them, right? So you can't use ampersand, right? But you can use underscore. So these are the three things that are allowed for you to use. You can use letters, you can use underscores, you can also use numbers. But again, it cannot start. See these rules now. This one, if you break any of these rules now, your Python code will not run. It can keep you for 2 days. For people who have done, who know what Python coding errors are, they can keep you for 2 days. Right? Trying to find out what's the problem. You don't know that it's your variable that is messing you up. Even though it helps you, Python has a very, very good error. We call it debugging. You will see debugging as we continue to go. So it helps you to debug it, to tell you, oh, this variable. Now, the way we take new one. For those people who don't listen to preaching, I apologize. Okay. Now, they can start with a letter or an underscore, but they cannot start with a number. You can see it allows the combination of 3 things: letters, numbers, and underscores. But at the same time, it only allows you to start with letters or underscores. You can't start with numbers. If you start with numbers, Python will give it another interpretation. For example, you can see, let's name some kind of Python variables. Name is equal to money. Let me try to zoom this in. Now you can see Python accepts this. That is why it has run. Once you see this, it means once Python run, in the end, you have this tick. It means you're safe. But even though you see red line. Now let me try. Let's try some names. Let's start with name. Let's do this. My name is equal to. Let me put this. You can already see lines already showing me that. These were the red lines I was telling you about. It's the red lines. This is giving me an error. And what is it telling me? Invalid syntax, right? So let's do another one. Let's try to do my dash name. It's called. Let's do this. Now you can see it is telling me another syntax error, right? So now you can already see some of the errors we're running into because of using bad variable names. Of course, they also told us that we can start only with numbers, sorry, with letters or underscores, right? So let me try to start with a number. You can start with an underscore like this. Name is equal to money. This will work, but you cannot start with a number. One name equal to money. So throw an error for you, right? Invalid decimal literal. If you start with number, Python is assuming that it's going to be a number all through. So at this point now, it came 1. After 1 now, it was expecting n to be a number, and then n was not a number. So Python was kind of, okay, so I don't understand what are you trying to say here? You're getting me all confused, right? So now it is you now that will have to lower yourself to learn the way Python understands. Python will not understand. Python only understands its language. you are the one that understands English and understands Python, or at least you're on the way to understanding Python, right? So you're going to try to come down to the level of Python and then speak its language. If you don't, you're also on your own, right? Of course, so we've seen a few errors practically that we can get as a result of naming bad variables. So you can see this one is correct, message one, this is correct, while this is not correct. I'm going to ask us some variable names, and then I'm going to see whether you're going to be able to tell me which ones are correct and which ones are not. Now you can see spaces are not allowed, just like what we saw. You can actually link them with an underscore, or you can use this. There's also this kind of naming convention. My name, you can just do my, then you use capital M, and you name it like this, my name. So Python understands this. You can just type it as my name. So we call this kind of casing camel casing, right? This kind of casing where you link them with an underscore is called snake case. Forget about the names. As you continue to practice, you'll be proud of yourself. One day you'll be like, okay, so this is camel casing, this is snake casing. Even if you don't know the names, you'll still be able to write good codes. But as you continue to see them in other books, in other tutorials, let it not come and confuse you. At least you've had it from me. We have snake casing, we have camel casing, right? Snake casing is when you link them with underscores, while camel casing is when you differentiate them with with capital letters, right? Okay, great. So we're going to look at the next one. I think you can go and study the rest by yourself. Avoid using Python keywords, very, very important. Like one of the keywords we've seen is the print statement, right? The print. If you on your own, now I'm going to do this and I'm going to restart you will make me restart my Jupyter Lab. Now, if I do this, print is equal to money, right? Now, if you were using Java, I have used Java before, I have used a C, and I know that some of those programming languages will throw an error for you. If you're wondering what those are, they're also programming languages like Python. They will throw an error for you. But then if you just run this, now this will throw an error for you. Except that now if you say you want to print the value of print now, see what will happen. It's going to throw an error because it is in this print now as money. So if you just use, there is another option for printing, which is called display. If you do this, then you run this display print, it's going to print money for you. It's going to display money. Now you can see what you have done. Now you have assigned a Python built-in function, right? You've assigned a Python built-in function to a variable. That is a colossal error, collateral error, whatever kind of error you want to call it. Just it can mess up with your entire code. So it means now anywhere we go now, if we try to use print statement, it will not work here. That's what you've done. If we come here, it will not work to throw an error. All of these ones will throw errors. Why? Because you assigned a Python built-in word. So you must be very, very careful when you're naming your variables. You must make sure that what you're using as your name of variable is not a Python keyword. And I know you want to ask me the question, hey, so how do I know a Python keyword? Let me give you, just come, bring your ear very, very close. Let me tell you. There are ways. That's why it's very, very good for you to use IDEs. They give you expose. So once you type the name of a variable and then it gives you a particular color that is different from normal colors, just know that it's a Python keyword. So run away from it. And more of them, you get to learn them as you continue to go. Don't worry, you make mistakes. I will tell you what you can do now, because as it is now, like this, all of our code will not work until we restart this kernel. So how do I say Python keyword now? Let me give you another keyword in Python, like def. Now you can see everything here looks whitish, right? It looks whitish. I don't know if it's gray or white. I think this is gray. But if I type def, you can see that def has changed color. Depending on the one you're using, some will give you green, some will give you red. Once you see that the color has changed, Python is trying to tell you that, oh, this is a keyword. So you might want to run away from it. Once it changes color, that's a primary school way of me trying to explain to you that. But then if you're using some IDEs, they don't actually do this changing of colors. So if they don't do it your own, it means you have to know the keywords, right? Sometimes you just have to learn it the hard way. So what do I do now to fix this error, which I have? Because if I continue to run this code forever, nothing will happen until I come to runtime, and then I restart the session. This is you interrupting. When the program is taking too long to run, you can just interrupt. This is where you can restart the session. You can restart and run all. right? So I'll just restart session and run all. So it will restart, take its time. So it will forget everything it has remembered. So it has forgotten that we said let print be equal to this. Oops, and we didn't, thank God it didn't run up to the end. Let's take this out so that we'll not enter into the same problem. Now, while we're having this, you remember now, these errors that we didn't clear, so they're always going to be here forever. Just going to be running these guys manually. Wait, I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Hope I didn't name print somewhere again. Okay, let me do this. Let me see. All right, let's see this. Oops, I think I wrote it somewhere. Okay, so let's go back again. Let's restart our session again and run everything. Forgot to take out that one. So it's great that I'm having these errors and you get to see how I'm fixing them, right? Now to throw an error. Now it is telling you that now this print function is actually a function with this, attributes and the rest. So it means you have actually taken care of that. And this will now work, right? So you can see these are a few things you can see in your variables. This is very, very important too. Very, very important how you name your variables. And you can't start with a space. You can't start with a space. For example, I want to name this x is equal to 2. Then I will not give a space, x is equal to 2. But I don't respect these spaces, so you're on your own if you do this. And then you now come here, then you run this code, it will give you an error. Okay, did give an error. Okay, let me try this. Y is equal to 2. Okay, great. But now you can see what happened is that you have, what do you call it now? You have a red line here explaining to you that you have an issue with this space. So take it out. If you don't, you're on your own. All right. So we're going to see what we call tab spaces as we continue to go, but not at the moment. So I've just taken my time to explain to you all of these guys. Right. Variable names should not also be overly lengthy. You can just summarize. Right. For example, area of a cycle, you can just do area cycle. You don't have to do area of a cycle. Or you can just put area circle or circle area or something like that. Just find a way of summarizing it. But make sure that it is descriptive enough. For example, area of a cycle, don't just come and use area. Area can mean area of anything, right? Area of a cycle. And see another example here. SN is too short. This is serial number, or this is SN. Of course, you can just put in yeah, you cannot, it's not even serial number, it's student name that you were trying to see, right? So this student name is better than SN. Student name, even though it's long, but then it's descriptive. The aim is to make it both descriptive and not too long again, so that your variable name will not come and be more than one line, will not come and take a lot of characters. So of course there is, I think your variables can take up to 256, characters long, up to 256. But then you should not also want to exhaust the 256. Right? Let somebody be able to look at your variable in one instance and be able to understand what's there. So now, so you can write student name is better than SN, and then name is also better than N. Just putting N. N can be number. Also, putting SN can be serial number, not student name. But then name length is also better than length of a person's name or length of person's name. That's too long. That's overly too long. So instead of saying length of person's name, you can just put name length or something like that. So you can just see how you are trying to strike a balance between letting it not be too long, let it also not be too short and not descriptive enough. But then, you know what? Just know that these rules exist. Some of them, like this one now, will not stop your code from running. And like we saw, this one also made your code run, except that you develop some kind of, it give you one kind of error like that. It caused one kind of error that was affecting your codes, inherently, right? So now, so these are the rules for naming variables. Of course, I know I took so long, but we're going to wrap up shortly, right? So name length, like we said, we're talking about this. So this will not stop your code from running, except that of course, you're not going to look, you're going to be confusing even yourself. There are times where you come back and look at the code after a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then you'll be like, so what was I trying to say here? So you want to make it as descriptive as possible for yourself first. Then also for other people that did not code it with you, right? When you're writing codes, most of the work you'll be doing, you will not be writing codes alone. You also have other people as you're developing this part of the code, another person is developing this part of the code, right? You want other people to be able to easily understand your code. If you don't write the codes very well, they will not be able to easily understand your code. So you make variable names as descriptive as possible for them. Then be careful when using lower cases like L, right? L and O, they might look like 1 and 0. I don't need to tell you that one. Let's come here and then look at it. So this is me typing 1, right? Now you can see 1. This is 1, right? This is L. You can see how they look very, very similar. Let me zoom in. You can see how they look very, very similar. If you're not careful, you will think as if this is 1. So you must be very, very careful when writing 1 and small letter L. Also, you must also be careful when writing O and 0. So this is O and small letters. This is O, this is 0. Now you can see the difference. So if you don't know the difference, you will think as if this is 0 and this is O. And some of you will, instead of typing 2000 like this, let's say X is equal to 2000 like this. This works, right? Then you now come and write Y is equal to the 2000, then put OO like this. This will automatically not wrong, right? Because of course we know that once it starts with a number, it's expecting the rest to be numbers, right? This will not wrong, of course. So that's why we have that. So you go and read up all of this. Now, avoiding name errors, of course. Avoiding name errors is when you're calling something that you did not. For example, now you can see here is message, and then here, who can tell me the error here? If you can spot the error, let me know. Just look at this. Tell me if you can see any error. Just let me know. You can just unmute your mic and talk. You don't have to use the chat box. Just unmute. Okay, go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead.
The variable are different. The message, there is one with double S, and the print, the one in the bracket is single S.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. It means you have good eyes, and it means you are with me. So now, when you do that, Python has never seen this before. This message that you are trying to ask it to. So anything you are telling Python to print that it has never seen before. Let's try this. Let me tell it to. Okay, I did not name anything n, right? Let me tell it to print n. Look at what Python will do. Look at what Colab will help you do. This Colab helping you do this. See, it has underlined n here because it has never seen anything that is called n. And if you stubbornly go ahead to run this, what will happen? You see that n is not defined. That is a name error. You can see the name of the error. Name error. It's telling you that. So name errors only occur when you didn't give it a value and then you're calling it. So it went. For example, now I'm a teacher. I just walk into a class, and then I decide to ask, who is Charity in this class, right? Or who is Julia? Or who is Muhammad? And then in the entire class, nobody goes by the name Muhammad. It means nobody is going to come out. Oh, okay. I actually have a Charity in the class. Oh, okay. Great. Okay, so imagine that happened to you, right? You're the person that went to look for a particular student in that class that who does not go by that name. It means entirely the class will respond to you with what we don't have anybody that goes by that name. So that's what Python is trying to do. Trying to tell you, okay, we don't get anything, we get that kind of name. That's what they call name error. Right? So that's you asking for what you did not keep, right? Trying to reap where you did not sow. Okay. So it will give you the name error. And then sometimes it arrives because of spelling, right? Just like what we saw message. If I print this message, of course, I'm going to have a value, but if I remove this S, it's not the same as the one with double S. It's not the same. Don't think Python will say, okay, I understand. Do you mean this? But no. As far as it is concerned, it's a name error. Yes, except maybe if you're using ChatGPT or other AI tools that will help you, will not tell you. Okay, you can just use this explain error. But I don't want you to use this anyway. I don't want you to use this. For now, just focus on you being able to find the error by yourself, right? But I'm just telling you that if you use explain error here on Gemini, it's going to scan through all of this guy and to show you the error. We'll come back for you later. So those are the things you do to avoid name errors, right? So this is one of the errors you might likely be seeing, name errors. All of you here will have name errors at some point in time. All of you. Great. So now they are trying to explain for us variables. What is a variable? Variable is like a label, right? So you find out that you can have a container that contains stuff inside, right? But there is always a label on top of the container. For example, for people who are science students here, lab, you find out that there are a lot of things inside different bottles. Some of them have the same and everything, but they have different names, right? And of course, on each of all of those bottles, you find out that there are names. There are name tags for each of those, for each of the solutions or the elements that are inside the container, right? So why do they do that? Why do we do that? It's actually because anytime you're trying to invoke the name of a variable, or you're trying to call it, or you're trying to print it out, is you trying to tell Python, okay, go and search the go and search through all of the archives of things I have, all of the things we've stored so far. Check whether we have this and bring it up. If we don't have it, display the error to the user. So that's what you're having. So variables are like labels for things that we store. Imagine you're a storekeeper now, and then people bring bags of food stuff to come and store in your store. We do that a lot in the northern part of Nigeria. I don't know if other parts of the world do, but I think storage of crops is a common practice, right? So if you do that, right, there are name tags for all of those. There are name tags for the people that own all of those. You can't carry what belongs to Mr. A and give Mr. B, right? Even not, you're preparing yourself for life imprisonment. Because so variables, see them as labels for contents that you store. They are not actually the contents, but they are labels. So that when you send Python, fetch me this, it will use the label, find if that thing exists, then to bring it back for you. So that's what the variable is, right? So this is your first set of exercise. Because let me just take some time to explain to you how you're going to do it. And you're going to write a separate program each to accomplish. So they said a separate program each to accomplish these exercises, right? What I want you to do is I want you to write them instead on separate cells. For example, 2.1 now will be on a separate cell. And this is how I want you to do it. Okay. So let's say, for example, you're here. That will be like the first thing that will be here anyway. So you have exercise 2.1, add a text cell up, and then you name it exercise 2.1, right? You can, it's either 2.1 or 2-1, whichever one you see fits you want to use. Name error. Here you can just highlight it, bold, you can just give it the title, give it the second title. Give it the second star, because your first star is going to be this thing, week this, and this. Don't worry about your email. We already have, you collect it via Google Form, so we'll know your email already. So just put Python for data. Don't worry, let me just take the time to explain. Okay, you can see our guy has finished telling us. So he's telling us that, oh, okay, so the error you had is that you're trying to use a variable called this one, but it's not defined. There appears to be a typo, and should likely be. This is AI now looking at your code and giving it, but don't use it. If you use it, you are cut you on your own. Please don't use it for your learning sake. I beg you, don't use it. Except if that's the last, that's the last resort. Sometimes the overuse of AI makes your brain not to be used. And of course, people argue it. But I tell you, if you don't use your brain, there are times where AI cannot do the job for you, and you would have to step up and do it. That's when you will know that, oh, okay, so I've not been fair to myself. So for now, deactivate anything that looks like AI. Focus and understand it. Right? Okay. So if you want to accept, you can just quickly accept the error. I've closed the place already. So I'm just going to go ahead and correct it myself. Right? Okay, so that's that about that. For now, I just wanted to explain to you what you're going to do in your assignments, right? Let's add this code cell here. Just pick one assignment. One assignment. I believe you're seeing what I'm doing. I want to believe you see what I'm doing. So we're going to bold this. I'm going to give it the title, right? So we're going to run this, and then so this is what you're going to have as your first cell. You're going to have exercise 2.1. Then you don't do your first exercise. Don't worry, I'm going to do the first one for you. I love you like that. I love you so much. I'm going to do the first one for you. Okay, so this is save each program as with a file name that follows Python standard convention. Don't save anything. Just in the end, you download the entire thing. You're going to do them each on separate cell. So on this cell, you're going to do 2.1. When you're done, you do 2.2, right? So let's do the first set together. So they said here, assign a message to variable. Okay, so exercise 2.1, you can copy this simple message. Instead, let me do this here so that it will be more descriptive if you want. Just bring it here, then Control V it. You can now see this is better. All right, simple message. Then what does this exercise say? Right, assign a message to a variable. Assign a message to a variable, any message, right? Print that message. Yeah, so we're going to do that. I'm going to write message. I'm going to write, I love you so much. Right, and we're going to print it. Let's see what the next one says. Did we say we should just assign or we should print? Stick to instructions, right? So it said assign a message to a variable and then print that message. So you're doing two things. We've done the assignment. Assignment is just saying, okay, this value should take, this variable should take this value. That is assignment, right? So we'll just print message. Let's see what we have. Love you so much, right? So you've worked, this has worked now. Now you go to the second one, assign a message to a variable, then print the message, then change the value of the variable to a new message and then print it, just like what we did previously, right? So what am I going to do now? I'm going to add another text cell. Or if you like, you can just come here, copy this guy. Just use Control A to copy everything. When you come here, add the text cell, paste it inside, then change this one to 2.2. And then you can just come back, copy simple messages now instead of message, right? Come back here, paste that instead of simple message. Or we can just add the S here. And we run this. Now we can come back here. Then we can now put, you can do now exercise 2.2, 2.3. I'm not going to do that one for you, right? So let's see what is happening to your table of contents if you click here. Now you can see we have week 1 assignment, we have content 1, we have content 2. So it takes me directly to that place, to that section. So that's why I'm telling you to do all of these guys. Don't worry, as you continue to use it, I know it looks a lot, but before the end of this week, once you go through it, you finish your exercise, it does become child's play to you, right? Okay. So we've been able to see what the variable is. Now let's look at some data types, common data types. We're going to be looking at strings, we're going to be looking at numbers before we close for today. I actually didn't want us to stay this long, but it looks like I had to do a lot of explanations. For next class, I might not be explaining things this granular, right? I will assume you already have the understanding of what we're saying now. And make no mistakes, when we come next class, we're building on what we learned already this week. So it's important, that's why we always give you exercises to go and carry out so that your brains are fresh for the next class, right? Okay, a string, right, in Python is just a data type given to a sequence of characters that are enclosed between a pair of quotation marks. Yeah, quotation marks. And those quotation marks can either be in Python, we have two sets of quotation marks. We have the one that has only one, we have the two quotation marks, right? Some of us don't know, right? Look at this. So we have this, we also have this. So both of them, Python uses them, both of them, and then it understands their language, right? So you can have the double quote. This is double, this is single. This double and single is not, this is not two single quotes. Sorry, here, this is not two single quotes. This is double. Actually, if you check on your keyboard, the key before, if you're using a Windows computer, the key before the enter key, somehow I feel that's exactly where it should be. you find out that you have the double quotes, right? You have the symbol and you have the double quote. You can use any of them, but make no mistake and use this symbol twice. It will throw an error. Name is equal to, no, this is me using double quotes now. Sorry, this is me using double quotes. But if I come now and then I decide to, some of us like trying things. But before you try, let me just show you. If you do double quotes like this, then you come back. Here is two. If you run it, you have an issue. Python will give you an error, right? Because this is you putting a string inside another one, right? So if you want, you can either stick with the double quotes or you can stick with the single quotes. But of course, we also see where we can use both of them, right? We can see where we use both of them. So the flexibility of Python allows you to use either the one with double string or single. So this is what we call a string. A string is anything that is enclosed between these two guys. Even if it is a number, anything that is enclosed between a pair of quotation marks is automatically, no matter whatever it is, whether it is numbers, even this one. If you give it something like this, x is equal to, you decide to name it like this, 2 like this, Python is going to be seeing it as a string. How do you know? You can just use the type keyword. This type will tell you the data type of that particular variable. Don't worry, we'll see that. You just go. Now it is telling you that this is a string, str. Telling you that this is a string. Python decides the types of data from the data type of the variable. That is, what kind of data is stored in this variable. Automatically, Python, by looking at the kind of values you pass to the variable, it will automatically decide the data type. And we have so many data types. But for today's class, we're just going to look at strings and numbers. We have other ones like booleans. We have other ones like, we have sequences like lists, tuples, dictionaries. And they are very, very important, but we're going to learn them one after the other. And for today's class, the easiest ones, of course, strings and what? And numbers are the ones we're going to look at. They are the easiest ones. Right, so what I was just saying here is that you can check the type by printing the type of the variable, right? So here, they're just trying to show us how we can use a combo of double quote and single quote. For example, if you want to say something that contains what someone has already said, right? For example, you want to say something like, let's try this statement. When I entered the class, everyone shouted, wow. So once you're here, or exclaim rather, exclaimed, wow. So if I want to write this wow, if I leave it like this, it does not show that it is actually me saying or reporting what those people were saying, right? So if I want to actually make this, I can just bring in a quote, either a single quote. Yeah, I can bring in a single quote here. So this works. So this is me saying, okay, this is what the people exclaimed, right? This was what they exclaimed. Well, I can decide to, now if you use this now should work. Now you can see how when I enter the class, everyone is claimed wow. Or if you like, you can now use single quotes here. Which of course, if you leave them like that, they will throw an error. Then here you will now use double quotes. Let's run this now. You can see. So this is a case where you do a collabo between single quotes and double quotes to try to achieve your purpose. Right? Try to do that kind of collabo. So that collabo is only gotten when, especially when you want to report something that someone has said verbatim, and you use single and a combination of single and double quotes. Right. Okay. So let's finish up on strings. So those are what strings are. So when you pass in your name, any other thing, that is what the string is. And strings have some very, very important things that we want to look at. Very, very important things like if you want to change the casing of variables. For people who have used Excel before, you know of things like the lower function equals to lower, equal to upper, equal to capitalize, So we have all of those in Python. You can change the casing of a string for you, right? You can use dot title. You can use the dot title changes the first letter of every word, right? The first letter of every word to capital letters already. So it checks to see if the first letter is capital before. If the first letter is capital, it leaves it like that. If it is small letter, it changes it to capital, right? Now you can see how Ada Lovelace here, right? You can see how Ada Lovelace was written when it was passed the title function. What did it become? It became Ada Lovelace, right? So this is dot upper dot lower, and this is what we're going to be seeing, right? And then we also have other string functions that we're going to be seeing, right? We're going to be seeing them. We're going to be seeing all of those. Okay, we're going to be seeing that. So let me quickly just show us this. Let me just type this, changing case of a string. Just give this a little topic, Control B. Control B does not work. It's trying to open bookmarks for me. Okay. Let me give it 2 to hash signs. Now changing the case, I'm going to give an exercise on this. So stay tuned. Just going to give you 2 minutes exercise on this. And let me see how well you're going to do. Now, the name is equal to, you're going to put in your full name. Let me put in my full name. Okay. Oh, okay. Let me just use small letters. Now, some people are careless like that to use small letters. So, in case if they enter their data with small letters, as a professional, you don't want to pass your report with people's name with small letters. So, you might want to have a way of changing it, right? So, since this is the name, we're going to print 2 things. Name dot. First of all, we are going to use dot upper. Dot upper uses uppercase. That is uppercase or capital letters if you like. We have uppercase, we have lowercase, we have what do you call it now? We have lowercase, we have uppercase, we also have the title casing, if you like. Right. So what do you do here? Let me show you this. These are called methods. In case you've not done programming before, just swallow this one up. Just swallow this one up. Right. You can just write the name of the variable, then you add dots, then you write it the method name, and then you close it. Some methods, there are things that you pass into this bracket, but for now, let's just leave it like that. So this dot upper is a string method that converts the string itself to capital letters, right? So just take it like this. Some things, like I said, you will not understand now, but before the end of this course, you will be able to create your own classes and even methods before the end of this entire Python for data. Those will be our last topics, right? So let's do this. Now, before we continue, let's print name first. Let's print name first so that we see what name looks like. So you can see this is what name looks like. So let me also print name dot lower. Let me use dot title. Right, dot title. So let's see what dot title does. You can see it takes this one. What does it do? It converts it to like what do you call it? It converts it to the first letter. It takes only the first letters and then it converts the first letters to what? To capital letters, and then while the rest remain like that. So even if I decide to pass in this one like this with capital letters like this, and I run this code, if I decide to do this, now you can see what this thing did, dot title did. What did dot title do? It simply just let me reduce this in. So what it simply just took the first one, made it a capital letter, or at least still maintained that this is a capital letter, and then the rest were small letters, made them small letters. Right. So that is what dot upper dot title do. Then the last one we're going to be seeing under this is name dot dot lower. So dot lower will change any name that you the contents, right? You check the contents and then to convert everything to lowercase. It's just the opposite of upper. Upper converts everything to uppercase, while lower converts everything to lowercase, and then the title converts only the first word letters of every word, right? So this, so you can see. Now you have 2 minutes to carry out this exercise. 2 minutes, we're coming back 3:28. 2 minutes, just try this out. Let's see what you have. Name a variable and then try the dot upper, try the dot title, try the dot lower. Let's see what you have. The other time I made you people combine two strings, two variables together. I made you assign name and then you gave the name of a person. Let's just quickly do it. Right. We did name equal to money, right? And then we had message is equal to hello, right? So we decided to do something like this. If you have not forgotten, if you didn't forget your exercise, so do something like this: print name message, name comma message, and then what happened? We printed both of them together, right? So this is more like what we're going to be seeing now, but we're going to be seeing other ways of achieving this feat, right? This is where you print two variables. But what if maybe I want to print other things like, okay, I want to print so many strings together, I can separate them with commas. That is just what we are seeing now. I want to put so many variables together. Let's see. I have this and I want to write, okay, I want to see you. And then I want to use the variable of name here. I can just separate it with a comma and just do name. I want to see you this. Now let's try printing this and let's see what we get. We get I want to see you, man. Right. So I want to explain to you what's happening here. These are two strings. This is the same, this is equivalent to you printing this, to you doing this. Print instead of the name here, you don't write money like this. Money, comma, you now pass in hello. This and this are exactly the same. Exactly the same. That's how Python is I'm trying to teach you how to understand the Python language. So when you're saying print name, comma, message, is the same thing as saying print money, comma, hello. Because if you remember, these are the values for these guys, right? So if I print them, you see that I have the same thing. Exactly the same. No difference, right? So if you're printing, I want to see you name, it's like you're printing one string that has not been assigned to a variable and another that has already been assigned to a variable, right? So that's how Python understands what you're actually saying, right? And it's great that you understand how Python wants you to, how it's great for you to understand what Python is actually saying, on how it is reasoning, so that it helps you a lot. There is even a better way that I like, right? Which is the F formatted printing. And these are the only two I'm going to be teaching you for the sake of this class. Right? You can just use this print. Now you can add F to the beginning. Then everything that you'll be typing inside, instead of separating them with commas, you'll be typing your statements, and then you only be using, okay, let me just put it. I want to see you. Then I can just open and close. You can see this kind of brackets, curly braces for a set bar. And just put I want to see you. Then I can put name inside. So this is one of the most flexible I've seen, because you can type in anything and the number of space you leave is going to be there. So let's print this out. It's still the same thing. Now, what if I add another variable called age? Age is equal to 27. Then I want to print something. I want to print hello. Hello. I want to write something like hello money. Your account balance or your age is this, right? So I can just put hello, comma. Or let me just put this hello name, right? Your age is, what do you call it now? Let me put your age is age. Now if I print this, what happens? It just prints out the guys for me. And then why is it not printing name instead of why is it not printing out variable? Why is it telling me this? It's because I did not add the F here, right? If I do now, you can see even the way the colors are here have changed, right? So that's great. So you can now just quickly run this, and then you can see now it has given me hello money, your age is 27. So this one will be most flexible. Instead of me typing hello, then breaking it, type name, breaking it, with commas, your age is, breaking it, and then you if you want to type this normally now, you have to type this with the comma separated. I have to use hello, then I'll come name, I then I will not type your age is, then I will not break it with another comma age. Let's see if this is the same. Okay. Why is it not the same? Money, your age is 27. Definitely something is wrong. Hello, money, your okay, your yeah. So you can see they are exactly the same. But which one is more stressful? It means it is all up to you. If you want to be breaking them with commas, it's still left to you, right? But the best way is to use the F formatted, and which is what I'm mostly going to be using for my classes, right? The F formatted. Other ones here are available for you. You can see here the first name is Ada, last name is Loveless, and they now did F, you know, F first name and last name. This is them assigning it to a third variable, right? Called full name. You can also do that as well. Let's just do that so that for the sake of your exercises, right? My that first name goes to Manasseh and have last name is equal to Ibrahim, right? Great. Then we have this. Now I can just decide to call full name is equal to, oh okay, I can have spaces and see errors, right? Can have spaces. So full name will be equal to I can just use the F formatted string, and I can bring in first name. Okay, here first name, right? First name, and then I can just give a space again, call another name. That is the last name. Now let me tell you what I'm doing here. I just decided to assign this to another variable instead of printing it directly. I can decide to assign it before printing the full name. That is me saying, okay, instead of you can see this message here. Instead of printing the message, I can just come here and then say message here is equal to. Then I'll copy this guy, this F formatted here. I'll copy it and then bring it here. Then I'll come back here and then I'll print message. If I run this, it still gives me the same response. So that's just what they basically did here, right? Where we would have that the F formatted is first name, then space, full name. You can decide to say, okay, if I want the first name to be upper, right? I can just come here and put dot upper. So that even if the person entered in small letter, it will be upper, dot upper. Then I'll print this. Okay, I cannot print that full name. So you would have this full name. Now you can see the first one appeared in an uppercase, but if you take this out, you can see what it gives you. Right? It just basically gave you first name and last name. Everything the same casing that the original casing, but if you want to add an upper or a title or any other thing you want, you see, this gives you that, right? So that's basically it looks like it's a lot. If you would ask me, it's just us. All we have been doing is trying to manipulate and then see how we can bring several strings together, right? And then also using some of our methods like upper to change what we actually had, right? So either uppercase, lowercase, or the rest. You can even come here and put a comma. So you cannot see how in your school website, right? You would enter your name as Manasseh Ibrahim, and then when they want to print your results, they will not have Manasseh comma Ibrahim. You'll be like, okay, so how did they do it? That's how they did it actually. In case if you're wondering, that's how they did it. Right. So now that's what they did. You can go back through and then read this, and then you can see how they use dot title here, right? You can also use it inside the variable here, just like you saw me use it, right? You can actually use it there. So let's just scroll down. You read all of this on yourself by yourself. You can see adding white spaces now. Don't worry, we're rounding up. We're adding white spaces now. White spaces are just extra spaces in Python to depict to just increase readability, right? White spaces could be between your quotes. For example, now you can see between this variable naming nomenclature. One cool thing about integers and floats is that while carrying out an operation on any two or more integers, sometimes you end up getting a float as the result. For example, the division operation, right? But for other operations like multiplication, subtraction, and addition, they always end up giving you an integer. If you're a math student, they say this operation is closed over this set of numbers. So these three operations, addition, subtraction, and multiplication, are closed over the set of integers, but division is not. Because when you divide two integers, they are not necessarily going to give you another integer. There are some times where, of course, if it's a perfect divisible number, say 4 divided 2, you're going to have 2. But then here, of course, um sorry, I meant 4 divided by 2, not 4 divides 2. Those are two different languages. Apologies for those watching. Okay, so now when we have cases like 3 divided by 2, of course what we're going to have is what is 1.5. Now the problem here is that the in Python, when you divide one integer by another, irrespective of whether the result is going to be an integer or not, that is, irrespective of whether it's going to be a 4 divided by 2 or a 3 divided by 2, right? Irrespective of which, you're going to always have a float. I think Python was designed to always just anticipate those kind of issues. So once there is a division operation, just be rest assured that the answer is going to be a float. That is between two integers, right? We're going to see floats. So let's see that. Enough of the talking I like doing. So let's quickly just do this. 3 divided by 2. Let's print this and see. Let's do this. Let's also do 4 divided by 2. Let's see what we have. Now let's kindly wait for them to come up. Um, I'm still connecting here. Right. So you can see both of them are floats, right? So a way to check this, how about I just do type of 4 divided by 2. Let's do this. It's going to give us a float, right? So it's a float. Now, I believe you can already see some of the right, some of the very, very visible scenarios we have while working with floats and integers, right? So floating point numbers don't really have a lot of problems. They're already floating points. If you multiply them, they will still be floating points. If you add them, they will still be floating point. You divide them, they will still be floating point, right? So once a number is a float, you have less problems. So those are the kinds of numbers, we call them real numbers, right? So if you study math, of course, they call them real numbers, and real numbers are closed almost under every operation, right? Over the four basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, they are closed under those operations, right? So what it means for an operation to be closed over a set of numbers is just basically when you carry out you carry an operation with any elements of the set, and then the result is still an element of the set. Forget about it if you don't get what I said, right? In Nigeria, we always have this slang: if you don't get it, forget about it, right? So if you're watching, I apologize. We like talking math language, but really, you don't really need to know that, but you just need to know that it helps you to anticipate some kind of errors, right? When you're solving some problems in math. Let's say you are writing a solution that has to do with multiplication, division, or whatever. So sometimes you try to do it with an integer, it will give you an error. So you must understand that when it gets to division, or there are some operations you carry out with an integer, especially the division, that will most likely give you a what? A floating point number. And you might have one or two errors going forward, right? So some things I might say them and they look like, you don't need them, but someday you might just be alone there trying to debug one problem and I might not be there to help you, right? So let's quickly look back. Of course, we have the power, which is just um two multiplication signs, two asterisks, they give you the power. So this 3 power 2 is basically 9, 3 power 3, of course, it's 27, 10 power 6 is 10 times, 10 times, 10 times, 10 times. That's a million, right? If you come to this, yeah, I think I got that. That's a million. So that's just that. Now, we're going to look at this, but then first of all, Python also supports operation orders, just like we have board mass, right? Bracket of division, multiplication, subtraction, whatever it is that you call them. Here, we do not necessarily have them as board mass, but we have, um, of course, we have order at which Python carries out these operations. I'm just going to give you an example here. Of course, now of course, it follows board mass, but I'm just saying in addition to board mass, it has some, right? You might go and check them out. And if you have forgotten your board mass, you can just quickly go back and check your board mass, right? Your board mass just tells you that if you have different operations, in between different numbers, that it tells you which one will happen first before the other, right? So brackets, of course, it first deals with whatever is inside the parentheses first before it does what? Division, it does multiplication, then addition and subtraction. That is board mass, but it has more than that. Of course, that's what you should know for now. And of course, if you have multiplication and addition, of course, in the hierarchy, multiplication comes before addition. So if you have this, I know some of you, if you're watching this, just take a pause 5 minutes and then guess the answer. Oops, you saw the answer already. Okay, well, the answer is 14. Why is it 14? It's because it was a 3 times 4 was done before 2 was added. Now this is 12. When you add 2, it becomes 14, right? Well, some of us will just carelessly carry them, we'll treat them based on first come first serve, right? FCFS. And when you do that, 2 plus 5, 2 plus 3 rather, you're going to have 5. And then 5 times 4, you're going to have 20. And that's not going to be the result. Of course, we're going to try this out, but you can try it out on your own. And then when you do this one, is different. Here, it first settles what is inside the bracket. This is 2 plus 3, which gives you what? 5. 5 times 4 is 20. So these are two different scenarios. Why do you need this? You need it in data analysis. You need it. You need to know. There are sometimes where maybe you're trying to calculate profit margin, or you're trying to calculate some of those things. You're trying to calculate the 75th percent of your profit added to okay, let's say you have a profit column. You calculate the 75th percent of the column, and then you subtract it from the column to have the final sales amount. Maybe let's say you were doing the company you were analyzing data for were giving promo to people, and they give 75% discount to customers. Of course, you will need to subtract that from the sales amount to get the actual amount, or to get, just, I don't want to confuse all of us now with those calculations, but you will need to do some of those calculations in order to get some final value, right? And some of those calculations are more than just doing this minus this. You might want to do them at the same time. This minus 75 over 100 times this plus this. So you might want to know how to properly write the operations. If not, you might end up getting a wrong result, right? So no, if you want the multiplication to happen first, this is okay, of course. But if you want the addition to carry out first, you have to find a way of multiplying it. So this is entirely something you might want to check out. Yeah. So that's why if you are carry out an operation, make sure that you manually do it with some values to see if actually it's giving you the value you want, or you're messing up, before you go and give a value that is not what you're supposed to give up. If that happens, you're putting your career at risk, of course. So of course, let's just quickly check that. And then we have this now. Note, if I'm using a notebook, I don't even have to pass in this print you, right? I can just do it 4 times 2, and then I'll do this. That's one of the things we enjoy, right? You don't even have to use the print always. You only use the print when sometimes you have multiple printings to do. So if you don't apply the print, it might not work at all. So if you do this, you have if you do 4 divided by 2, automatically you just have your 2.0. So if you do 2 plus 3 times 5, of course, is basically different from, you can see, this gave us, oops, this was times 4. I was about to say, what happened that it's not 14 again. So here, if we open the bracket, 2 plus 3, you know, times 4, this will give you a different answer. So let's say I sold something, selling amount. Let's just do this quick exercise. Selling amount is equal to, let's say, well, let's call it cost of goods sold, right? This 500. That is the cost of production now, right? Then let's say we added our profit. Then our profit is let's say 120 naira, right? So it means the selling amount now will be equal to what? Will simply be cost of goods sold plus what? Profit, right? So if you just type selling amount here, of course, what are you going to have? You're going to have 620. So let's also say now that we decided to give a discount. So I can just come here and then let me just print, of course, uh, selling amount, right? I can just say selling amount is this. Now let me calculate discount. My discount, let's say, is 0.5. Let's say it's 50% discount I want to give. Do I even want to give 0.5? What happened to 0.05? 0.05. That is 5%, right? 5% is just simply 5 divided by 100. Let me make it this way so it's easy for us. But if you're convenient with 0.05, it's still okay. If you divide 5 by 100, I mean, you're going to have 0.05. If you don't trust me, just add the code cell below and then check, right? So discount, after discount, now going to calculate discount amount now. This, okay, I'm supposed to multiply by what now? By the selling amount, right? So this is going to give me the discount amount. Let me print the discount. Print uh, discount amount is cost. Let's do discount. I'm just showing you classical. Now you can see the selling amount is actually this, while the discount is actually 31 naira, right? Let's assume it's in naira dollar. So I'm safe now that I'm not using the currency, right? So people don't think, okay, I'm being biased. Okay, so what if I want to subtract now? I can just say, okay, so final amount is equal to what? Final amount is equal to this selling amount minus discount. Of course, now I can just go ahead. Let me copy this to see final or discounted price. Discounted selling amount or price if you want is final amount. It's gonna be final amount. Of course, let's run this. So you can see selling amount is this, discount amount is this, then selling amount. Now, why am I showing all of this? Just stay with me. Now, what if I didn't want to pass through the discount? I want to calculate everything in the same line, right? Since I know my cost of goods sold, I know my profit, I can just come and tell you the final amount, right? Or let me call it F, just FA. That's the bad variable name anyway. Just let me call it final amount is equal to. I just want to differentiate it from this one, right? It's equal to from here I will just have my cost of goods sold plus profit. So this will be COGS plus profit, right? Then minus what? Minus discount, which is 5 all over 100 times is really getting interesting, times what now? Times the selling amount, which is what? Which is this one plus this one. I can just come here, copy this, put this in the bracket, right? Or if I want, I could just use the selling amount here instead of this. I just want to show you something. Just stay with me. Selling amount. I can just take this out, replace with the selling amount, right? To just tidy up things minus selling amount. So this gives me directly. Now you can see where board mass comes into play. Now let me just take this out of the bracket. Now you can see here, this expression is correct. First, it's actually because I want to do this times this actually before subtracting. So this is correct. Now if I just print this, print, let me just call the FA directly. Now you see it gives me the same value with this one. I was confident because I know the order of board mass. The multiplication will first be carried out before the subtraction. So, but what if I wanted it to subtract first before it does this? What will I do? Come here now, apply my brackets. Right. Now I've spent close to 10 minutes explaining just this particular thing. It's because they are the things that mess up your analysis big time, especially when you are trying to do things like what we call them feature engineering. When you're trying to create features, that is for data scientists. You do a lot of feature engineering, or if you like, feature manufacturing. You're extracting features from already existing features. What I mean by features is like columns of data, if you want to call it columns or variables, right? Things like you're extracting profits, or you're extracting selling amounts from cost of goods sold, and what, and profit. You're extracting selling amount. You also extracted discount from what, from the percentage column, the discount amount. You were able to, all of those guys, you're bringing out columns that did not exist from columns that existed, right? So when you're doing that, you do a lot of calculations. I must be honest with you. So they are not very, very complex, but they are just these very, very simple but math operations that might mess up with your brain, right? So that this is what happens. Forgive me, I promise I was going to show you power. Yeah. So let's do this. 3 power 2. So it's going to give us 9. Of course. So that's power there for you. We have others. We have modulus, which is the percentage. I'm going to talk about that when we go forward, but just know that modulus is percentage. And if you don't know what modulus is, just do a quick Google search. Search what modulus is. If you just do 3% 2, it's going to give us 1. Okay, I'm going to explain two things here. I'm going to explain modulus, and I'm also going to explain floor division. Let me add another one. I'm just going to try to explain these two now. Pray that God will give me utterance to be able to explain this to you. But if not, okay. So now you can see 3 modulus 2. These are not the same operations. Okay. Let me use this on 5. Let me use this on 5. Which one is that? I think they're likely going to give me the same value. Okay, great. So this is great for my explanation. Now 5 modulus 2. 5 modulus 2, what it does is that modulus returns the remainder, right, of a number when a number is divided by another. So rather the remainder of the results when a number is divided by another. So 5 divided by 2 will give us what, 2 remainder 1. I want you to go back to that primary school now. Right, so 5 modulus 2 is going to give me 1, because the remainder when I divide 5 by 2 is going to give me 1. That's what modulus is. If you don't understand this simple explanation, please just feel free to rewind the video again. And then this one, floor division, or otherwise called integer division, will return to me the whole part when this number is divided by this one. So just like I said here, if you divide 5 divided by 2, what do you get? You get 2 remainder 1, right? You get 2 remainder 1. Forget about this. I'm coming to come and explain. This is a comment. I'm coming to explain it. So this is 2 remainder 1. Now if I have this as 2 remainder 1, now modulus will return the remainder, whereas floor division will return the whole part. That is the answer you got, right? This one. So 5 divided by 2 will give me 2 remainder 1. So the floor division will give me this one, while the modulus will give me this one. So why are we even doing modulus and floor division? We're going to use it when we get somewhere. Right? We might need to check even and odd numbers, and this will help us. So when you divide, when the modulus of a number, When you divide the number by 2 and then the result, right, is 0, it means the number is even. Else, the number is odd, right? So for floor division, when do we need it? There are times where you just need the whole part. You don't need the points. You don't need the points, right? You just need to know the whole part. You don't need the decimal part. So if you that's what you need. You just do your floor division directly, of course. So there are many other operations which we will see as we continue to go forward in this course. So with your permission now, I'll go back here and then we see. So we have floats, of course. You can just check what floats are. You can also carry out these kind of operations with floats, just like we saw. I'm not going to do this, you do this. We're going to do 0.1 plus 0.1, 0.2. Just try this out, right? Now, but be aware that sometimes, right, be aware that you can sometimes get an arbitrary number of decimal places in your answer. Yeah, sometimes Python is like that. That's because there are a lot of things that happen behind the scene. And because of the ease of Python, people think as if, you just walk into Python and then you just write simple codes and that's all. That's it all. No. Actually, what happens is that Python is actually doing a lot of work for you behind the scenes. That's why you just write one line of code and then it's doing miracles. You've not even started seeing miracles. It's when you are carrying out data analysis now. You see that one line of code will just do magic. Just one line. That's why people are shouting data analysis with Python, data analysis, data science, data engineering. Just one line of code will just do magic for you. That's because when you write that one line of code, there are so many lines of code working behind the scenes, right? So computer students have various things for them, right? Yeah. So one of the things now is that if you do 0.1 plus 0.2, of course, you're going to find out that you're going to have 0.00. Let's even see if it's true. Uh, let's see. I like trying 0.1 plus 0.2. It's true actually. Okay, so why is this? Like I was saying earlier, right? Python does a lot of operations behind the scenes for you. And now this is one of the drawbacks you get. Now let's read, see what they said. Now this happens in all languages and is of little concern. Python tries to find a way to represent rather the result that as precisely as possible, which is sometimes difficult given how computers have to represent numbers internally. Just ignore the extra decimals for now. You learn how to deal with it. Extra spaces or places when you need to in the project in part two. Of course, we're not going to do part two, but we're going to see how we're going to round up values, right? We're going to see how to do that, right? So now, like what I was trying to say is that when you're carrying out computations, computers have to convert it to binary digits, right? So when they do so, you don't want to know what happens in the binary world. Once it's not an integer, once it's a floating point numbers, a lot of things happen there. There are a lot of considerations, for how the number is going to be represented. And so if the number is not perfectly represented, right, when this number is converted, and also this number is also converted, when an operation is carried out between them, and then they are converting it back to the, they are converting it back to normal integer format, you most likely will have this kind of issues, right? So don't worry about them like they said. It's not actually your fault. It's actually because computers only understands binary language. Am I speaking too much of computer language? I want to trust not. Like I said, of course, when you're dividing one integer by another, of course, you're gonna have automatically you're going to have a floating point number, right? And so also is the addition. When you add an integer with a float, you're going to have a float. Try this out. When you're multiplying an integer with a float, you're going to have float, right? When you do this, and that's not because this is Python. This is because um when you're in the world of, don't sound too mathematical, but for the sake of those who studied math, so that you know that what you're studied in school, what you've labored for in school for 3 or 4 years is actually not in vain, right? So when you're carrying out an operation between an integer and a float, automatically the result will be a float, right? Because floats have points, so automatically the number will carry points, if you understand that. Then now underscores in numbers. So I know some of us sometimes it can be confusing for us to write, you want to write 14 billion or 14 million, right? Sometimes you want to use the commas, but if you use commas, you're on your own, right? In Python, we don't. If you use commas, you're calling some kinds of numbers like that. So let's see. You're calling another kind of data type. I don't know why I'm just excited. So if I say x is equal to 14,000 like this, let's see what we get. Of course, this works, but let's try to print x and see what x is. Now you can see what it did for you. It printed x as a coordinate. So this is actually like a tuple. We're going to see this. We're going to see that's what we're going to look at next week. We're going to look at things like these lists and tuples. We're going to look at them next week. And it's going to be an interesting session. Right. So now that's why we don't do this. So if we want to do this in Python, we simply just okay, let me just print x here. So that when I come here, we'll see the difference, right? We use an underscore zero. So Python understands the underscore as a comma. Now try to print it and see what it gives you. Let's print x. Now you can see it gave you, it understood it as. So now Python will actually automatically truncate this. It will take it off, right? Now, but for you as a human, right, you need it for readability's sake. You need it just so that you are sure that okay, while writing 7 zeros for 10 million naira, you are not actually writing 8 zeros or six. In that case, you want to be sure, so you can use underscores to separate. It's okay, but don't use commas. If you use commas, low. I don't even know if I said it correctly. Okay, so of course you can also do multiple assignments. Yeah, can also do multiple assignment. So just like we saw in the case of in this case where we passed in one number and then it assumed that you're giving x two values. We call it a tuple. Of course, I don't want to say much about this. Next week we're going to see it. So it's giving for x actually two values. It's giving it 14 and it's giving it zero. That's the assumption of what you did, right? So now if I have two numbers, let's say I have if I want to do x is equal to 2, y is equal to 2, right? Print x plus y, right? If I want to write an equivalent of this, if I don't want to have two lines, which is actually not very, very readable, we're going to look at that in a few minutes from now. We're going to see the Zen of Python, where we value readability a lot in Python. We value readability. So in the case where readability is of the essence, this is actually better. But of course, if you want to do multi-line, multi, it's no, that's not the expression. Okay, so in a case where you want to assign multiple variables in a single line, like this, x, comma, y is equal to, you can actually pass. Now the first value will be given to x and the second will be given to y. So you can do this 2, comma 3, right? You run this. And then you can simply just print, let's see if this works, x plus y, right? 5. And of course, if you want, you can print x and print y. So let's see which one comes first. You see, 2 comes first and then 3, telling you, showing you actually that 2 was given to x and 3 was given to y, right? Before the result of their sum. So why am I showing all of this? There are times where you might need to do this. For example, if you're trying to give a certain 0 point, there are times where when you're writing, let's say you're writing a game, the game score, computer score, and everything, you want to initialize it to 000. So you can just do, let's say this is your score x, computer score y, to final game score. Let's call it, all of them want to give them 0. So all of these you can just give them 0, comma 0, comma 0 as equal to this. Then let's see what it gives us. Of course, so all of these guys, their values will be equal to what? Print x, print y, print z. Okay, f. So let's run this. Of course, we're gonna have 000, right? So that's, you can actually do this, but for readability's sake, I feel this is better. Yeah. So now, of course, there are, like I said, there are many scenarios where you may want to use this, right? So you can go ahead and continue reading the text here. Now, constant. What are constants? Constants are, in fact, all of the assignments you've done previously, X, Y, Z, all of them are basically constants, right? Constants are things that do not change, right? So all of the assignments we've done, let X be equal to this, universe age is equal to this, all of them are constants. Constants are values that will not change. For example, if I say, X is equal to 2 and Y is equals to X plus 3. Now look at this. If I do this, right, if I run this, if I print X, well, let me just do this, X comma Y. Let me see what I will have. So the first value is for X and the second value is for Y. So this gives me 2, this gives me 5. So Y now is called a dependent variable, while X is called an independent variable, and 3 is called a constant. Why? Because the values of Y and X can change, but 3, its value cannot change, right? Just trying to, don't worry, data analysis is not that hard. It's not that, data science is not that difficult. Just know that these basics exist. The things you did in math, yeah, of course, I know you didn't like your math teacher. Very good. I think after this Python for data course, you're going to go back and then get 18 of Ovaltine for your math teacher, right? I pray he's still alive to receive the accolades. Now, so both y and x are variables, right? Because the value of y and the value of x will change depending on whether or not there is a change in the value of what x, right? But this three now is a constant, right? So if you're constructing a table to plot a graph, and then rather the column that is going to contain three is going to be just three throughout, right? Don't want to blow plenty of grammar, but I'm just trying to explain, right? That when you have in x and y, they are called variables, but when you have a number like this, it's called a constant, right? But then you can assign just like, let's say, like maximum connections because 5,000. So this number is likely not going to change. Let's say this is the bandwidth of your website. The maximum number of people that can connect per time is 5,000. So if people are up to 5,000, anybody that is coming in, print, place, wait for the person, right? So this number is likely not going to change except if you increase the bandwidth. Is this 500 or 5,000? 5,000, actually. Okay, so I try to relate this with secondary school math, right? And if you hate math, of course, I'll continue doing this so that it will awaken your interest for math, right? You will have to like math if you're going into the data space, except if you're going into data engineering, it has less of math. Yeah, except if you want to do your complex data cleanings. But people who are going into data science, data analysis, you do a lot of math. People who are going into AI, you people are the math, right? So, constants. Now, a constant is like a variable whose value stays the same, of course, like we just said, and I explained that. Okay, so this are your exercises. Of course, I think you still have one more exercise to go. Yeah, I think you do. So, comments. Simply, I will just use the next 5 minutes to see if I can explain comments. Now, comments are simply just lines we add to our codes that actually help us explain the code, right? More like if you check my notebook now, if I open my notebook, just so you know, right? FYI, I'm still a learner and I still learn every day. If I'm going to show you my notebook, you see my writings for, was it yesterday? I read last. Yeah, I think I have my writings from yesterday, of course. So if you see my notebook, so when I'm talking about notebook, I'm not just talking about your school notebook, no. I mean your data analysis or data science notebook. So if you're watching this video up to this extent and you don't have a book that you're using to write, hey God, you're on your own. Okay, so I do write, and when I write, I do, I try to add extra explanations to what this line is trying to say. Maybe from what the lecturer is trying to explain in the class, or maybe what I'm trying to understand from this book. I can just highlight this, right, and add a comment. I'm not sure this browser supports adding a comment to a PDF. Yeah, I don't think it does, but if you're using Adobe Reader, of course, I think it supports that. You can just highlight it, you can color them, right? That's highlighting. You can highlight them, then you can add comments, right? Those comments you can come back to someday, and it offers you um, more explanation, right? So sometimes you write codes and then you go back, and then you're kind of okay. So why did I even write this code this way? It happens to all programmers. Some people write codes for 3 years before they go back to the codes, and they will have to study the codes for long before they understand what they wrote. But when you add comments, okay, I did this because of this, I did this, you're more like documenting, you know, what you're doing, right, to yourself, right? So when you do all of those comments, they help you, right? They help you to be able to remember your codes. And they also help to explain the code to any other person who has access to the codes and want to understand the codes, right? For example, let's say you're collaborating with a team member to carry out a particular task, right? And you made some improvements in the code, right? You changed some things. It will be easy for them to come and understand what you did, why you did, and even how you did. What was your thinking process? Because you actually wrote some things. And luckily for us, adding comments in Python is very, very easy. You just need to add hash before whatever you're going to write. And Python will skip that line. Once it says hash, it will skip the line and run in the code. Or even if you write the comments in the same line with your code, once Python reads and it reaches where it says hash, it skips and goes to the next line. Right. So you can see this here. Say hello world to everyone. Say hello to everyone, right? So it will just tell people hello Python people. Right. So Python skips this line and just executes this, as you can see here, right? So we have two kinds of comments. We have a multi-line comment and we have a single line comment, right? So the single line comment is when you use hash. Just going to do this. So we have this. Um, Let me go back over some previous codes. Oh, let me just add some comments to some previous codes. Let's look at. Okay, so here discount, right? So calculating discount with 0.05, right? 0. Calculating, let me calculating 5% discount. So if I run this, you can see that nothing happened, right? Python actually skipped this line. So once you add a comment, let me add the space here. Once you add a comment, right, it even changes. If you're using a good ID, the color changes, right? So it is trying to tell you that this line of code will be skipped, right? The line of code will be skipped while execution is going on. So why am I going through the stress of telling all of this? Is because I know somehow you would need them, right? And you will need them to write better codes. And so from now henceforth, any code you're writing, add comments. And I'm sure that is exercise 2.10. They will tell you to add comments over all of the codes you've written so far, right? So write very, very good comments, very, very descriptive comments that when you come back to, you'll be able to understand, right? So what if you want to write multi-line comments, right? So calculating selling amount. Then maybe I want to write a formula for selling amount is A is equal to, okay, rather, let me use amount, that is amount, right? It's equal to selling amount minus what? Discount amount. Now you can see it allows me to write. You can write with your spaces. This is just you trying to explain. Now you are explaining to whoever is going to come and see this your code, right? That okay, actually this was the logic I thought about, right? Calculating selling amount, this, and this. So you can do this. Oh, there is even a better way, right? The better way is, let's just take these guys off, right? So you can add three dots here, three quotation marks actually, right here, and at the end. Great. So now you can see this entire guy now is now a comment. Now let's run this. Now you can see nothing happened. It didn't print anything here, right? But this can also be used somewhere as we call it doc string, right? It is used for documentation, and we will see when to use this. I think that will be chapter 6. Yeah, I think chapter 6, chapter 7. So we're going to see that going forward, and you would enjoy So this is a multi-line comment, but this is a single line comment, right? So if you want to write stuff over multiple lines, you don't have to be adding the hash, hash, hash. You can just use the multi-line comment, right? Great. Now, what kind of comments should you write in the first place, right? So the main reason to write comments is to explain what your code is supposed to do and how you're making it work, like I just said, right? So when you're in the middle of working on the project, you understand how all of the pieces fit together. But when you return to the project after some time, right? When maybe let's say you had two or three other projects that you did that also crashed your brain. You know, when I say the project crashed your brain, I mean actually it actually took you some effort before you were able to get the job done, right? When you're back to this code now that you wrote, you might forget. And I'm not even going to stand here and then tell you I'm a very, very good Python guy. I like writing comments. I don't like it. Sometimes I just don't even like write it. I just leave it there. Sometimes I allow ChatGPT to write the comments for me. That's terrible, right? But then, like I said, you should be a very, very good comment writer. Don't be like me. Don't be like me, right? I know they said the servant can never be greater than his master, but please don't be like me. Be greater than me. I give you that permission, right? So if you want to become a professional programmer or collaborate with other software or other programmers or software developers, you should write meaningful comments. Of course, you're going to read that to yourself, right? So you're going to do adding comments and then carry out this exercise. Now, the Zen of Python, right? What is the Zen of Python? Of course, I have been talking about being the Pythonic guy, I think, right from the onset of the class. Now, to round it up, you know, we're going to see that. So, whichever environment you're using, once you've installed Python on its own, even if you don't have an ID, it comes with that package that lists out all of the Python, Python code of conduct. If you don't, if you ask me, so the maker of Python or the developer of Python, Tim, yeah, Tim Peters, I think, yeah, Zen of Python by Tim Peters. He was the developer of Python, but you can check out. I might be mistaken if I'm not right. I'll come back to the next class and I'll apologize. Right. So after he developed Python, together with other team of people, they were able to sit down and then they were like, okay, so we really want to have some code of conduct for Python guys, right? We know Python is a is a highly flexible programming language. Some of these things that we are trying with Python, we can't try with Java. You try with Java, you're on your own. So Python is highly flexible, right? So and some people might tend to abuse the flexibility of Python, right? So that's why they have this code of conduct to help you. And this code of conduct um, have a way of extending to other programming languages, right? But we're just learning Python, so let's stick to Python. Now, the Zen of Python. In order for you to see the Zen of Python, you can just use simply do import this. Just writing import this brings you the Zen of Python. Let's just come here and see. That's the last code we're going to write today. Hopefully, import this, right? And then you have this. Now you can see all of them. Oops, they're not even plenty, right? You just have the Zen of Python by Tim Peters, and then you have beautiful is better than ugly. So make sure your quotes are beautiful. Oh. Explicit is better than implicit. Explicit. Explicit is when you're writing a line of when the quotes you're writing is understood by other people than using some functions that will just do some things. There are some functions that when once you just call them, they have a way of calculating everything and just returning the value for you. So if you're working with other people, they might actually get confused. So as much as sometimes you might want to use functions, which we will talk about that as we continue to go, but as much as it depends on you, try to make your codes, as descriptive, as explicit as possible, right? Simple is better than complex. So yeah, some people want to overdo it. They feel if you don't write complex codes, you're not right. Write your codes very simple. But then there are some times as well where what do we call it now? Where efficiency, right? Computational efficiency comes into play. What I mean by computational efficiency is when you have a set of data that is, let's say, 1 trillion records, right? So there are some times where you would want to write some codes that are efficient. What I mean by efficient is that they can get the job done quickly as possible. Some operations, if you ask Python to do it for you, it will take its time before it does it. Some it will just use nanoseconds to compute them. Some macroseconds. Yeah, right. But there are some that take minutes, some even take hours. For those of you who go into model development, that is data science, right, you will agree with me that some operations have the tendency of, taking up to an hour, right? So, why am I saying all of this? Is that as we continue to go, you don't even think that as we continue to go, we are going to break some of these rules. No, I'm just trying to find a balance. That as we continue to go, these are some of the rules that will guide us, right? And of course, sometimes that we might try to do some things that will look as if we're going back on our words, but we are not actually. We're trying to find balance between writing simple codes and writing efficient codes, right? So while simple codes sometimes will look simple, they sometimes stress the computer, right? They get the job done way more slower, and so we need speed. We're in a world of speed, so sometimes we might want to write some complex codes to just get the job done. That's why they said simple is better than complex. It does not mean that complex is bad, but simple is actually better. So if you have the options, if you have two options of writing a code and the two options are actually efficient, choose the simple method, right? Only choose the complex if sometimes you need efficiency, right? And then the simple method is actually, we're going to talk about some of those as we continue to go. So these are called the Zen of Python. You see things like flat is better than nested, sparse is better than dense, readability counts, of course, readability, adding comments, adding spaces between your codes, adding extra lines between your codes just to make your work readable. That's why you find out that when I'm writing my code, sometimes when I do this, I give spaces. I give spaces. It's just for readability's sake, right? So you should also learn to do that. It helps your readability, right? So that's that about that. You can just come back here and then read some of these things that Tim Peters had to say about Python, right? So of course, your last exercise is just to display this, of course. So in this chapter, you were able to learn a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. And of course, if you are watching the video up to this point, kudos to you, right? Kudos to you. I highly salute your efforts. I just want to say that um, it looks like what we learned is actually a lot. If you need to go back and watch on the video, please do so. But don't want to think they're a lot. I just took time to explain some things for you, right? Because I don't want to assume all of you here are professional programmers. I want to assume that I'm speaking to a mixed set of people. I'm talking to people who have not even seen coding before. I'm speaking to people who are beginners in coding. I'm speaking to intermediates in coding. And I'm speaking to advanced people. So if you're advanced here, I'm very, very sorry. I'm going slower. But it's possible that you are very, very advanced, but you don't even know some of these tiny things that I'm trying to share, right? So if you know them, very good. If you don't know them, of course, of course, it's right. It's just proper that you're listening to this now. But if you know them, of course, like I said earlier, there is no harm going over them. I actually learned Python basics over and over and over again. Even after cohort one, before I started cohort two, I still went back. I started Python from the beginning, from the very, very beginning, right? So there is no amount of going back to these basics that is too much for you. My dad will always tell me no amount of revision is ever too much, right? So that's that. So we learned a lot, right? We learned about variables, we learned about strings, we learned about numbers, we learned about comments, right? Just learned a lot. So they are not very, very plenty, but it's just that we took our time to dissect some matters, right? And whatever we covered is not exhaustive. We still have much more to talk about. But for now, this will form your background, right? And whatever it is that we're going to be doing is these simple, simple things that we learned today that we're still going to be building on. Is it the print? Is it the integers? Which we're going to look at list. We're going to look at other operations with list. We're going to see a lot of things. We're going to see methods associated with list next week, right? So it's going to be an interesting week. Just let me see you. And if you ever get stuck, please hit the comment section of this video, or you could just reach us on the WhatsApp platform. But of course, if you're watching this on YouTube and you were not part of the training, just use the comment section. We'll get back to you. Another thing, please like, comment, and share, of course, if you know anyone who would need them. And most importantly, subscribe.